The great hall of the regime was filled with light, sound, and laughter. Alien leaders from across the empire gathered, their voices echoing through the chamber. The council had called for a meeting to speak about Earth, and the galaxy listened closely. On giant screens above the chamber, images of humans appeared. Old videos showed Earth's past wars, soldiers running through mud, tanks grinding across broken cities, fire rising into the sky. To the regime, these were signs of weakness, not strength. The high speaker of the regime raised his hand. His scaled face twisted into a smile as he spoke loudly. "Humans," he said, his voice booming, "are a dying species. Look at them. Still trapped in their home system, still fighting with primitive weapons. Their ships are fragile, their colonies few. They are nothing. They are dust in the wind." The crowd burst into laughter. Rows of alien officials slammed their hands on tables, their laughter spreading like wildfire. Some shouted insults. Others waved their claws and tendrils in mock celebration. The high speaker continued. "They call their world a death world. They say their bodies are strong, their minds clever. But what good is strength against the fleets of the regime? What good is cleverness against the endless power of our empire?" The chamber roared again. More images appeared on the screen. Humans launching rockets into space, their first fragile stations floating above their planet. Compared to the shining war fleets of the regime, it looked pathetic. "Look at their ships," one council member mocked. "Old shells of metal, slow and weak. If they tried to fight, they would be destroyed in seconds." Another added, "If Earth dares to resist us, their species will vanish. Their name will be forgotten." The hall thundered with cruel laughter. Every corner of the galaxy received the broadcast. Billions of aliens watched, some amused, others nodding in agreement. Humanity was weak. Humanity was small. Humanity was not worth fearing, but not everyone laughed. Among the watchers were small alien races once crushed by the regime. They listened carefully, wondering why Earth was silent. No response came from the blue planet. No message, no threat, not even a denial. Some whispered quietly in the shadows of their homes. Why do humans say nothing? Why do they stay quiet? The regime did not care. They grew louder, their mocking sharper. One commander slammed his fist onto the table. "If Earth dares build a fleet, I will burn it myself. One ship from the regime is enough to shatter their whole world." Another voice shouted, "Perhaps we should not destroy them yet. Let them beg for mercy first. The galaxy will enjoy the show." The chamber shook with laughter. To them, Earth was a joke, a weakling among giants. But outside the chamber, far from the regime's shining capital, far from the crowded worlds of the galaxy, something stirred. In the deep, endless void of space, sensors recorded strange signals. They were faint, hidden under layers of interference. Regime scientists noticed the readings but dismissed them. Phantom energy, they said. Nothing more than broken stars or drifting wreckage. Yet the signals grew stronger. A few explorers whispered about vanishing ships near the dark regions of space. No distress calls, no survivors, only silence. Traders spoke of shadows moving where no planets existed, but the regime silenced such rumors. "They are lies," the council said. "Humans cannot build ships that travel beyond their sun. They cannot even defend their own skies." Still, the signals remained. The galaxy waited for a reply from Earth, but Earth stayed silent. No word from their leaders, no broadcast from their colonies. Silence. That silence was more frightening than words. The galaxy was used to defiance. Species begging for mercy, rebels shouting against the regime. But humans said nothing, and that nothing spread unease in places where the regime's laughter could not reach. Why were the humans so quiet? What were they hiding? The regime did not care. They saw only weakness, and they laughed even louder. The high speaker raised his hands for silence and gave his final words. "Remember this day, for the humans will soon learn their place. They are not warriors. They are not rulers. They are insects waiting to be crushed." The chamber erupted in cheers. The sound carried across the galaxy. Billions heard it. Billions believed it, but not for long, because in the far void, far from stars, far from light, something was moving. It was not a star. It was not an asteroid. It was not a ghost signal. It was something built. Something alive with power. Something waiting. And soon the regime would see it, the galaxy would see it, and no one would laugh again. The regime celebrated for days after their great speech. Their fleets marched proudly across the stars. Their leaders stood tall, and their people believed no one could stand against them. Earth was forgotten, a small, weak planet, a name used only for jokes. But in the shadows of the galaxy, not everyone laughed. Whispers began to spread. Traders, smugglers, and explorers told strange stories in dark spaceports. They spoke of signals, strange bursts of energy from places where no fleet should be. One trader claimed he had flown near a cold, empty system, only to see his ship's sensors go wild. Something massive was there, he whispered. A shadow larger than a fleet, but when I looked with my eyes I saw nothing. Another swore he had seen light bending unnaturally in the darkness. Like a star being swallowed, he said, his voice shaking. But it wasn't a star, it was something else. The regime dismissed these tales. Officials laughed, calling them ghost stories for frightened aliens. Superstitions, they declared. There is nothing in the void. But the stories would not die. In one remote sector, a small merchant ship vanished without warning. No distress call, no wreckage, no trace. Entire families were lost. Other ships that went searching never returned. Soon the trade routes nearby were abandoned. No one dared to travel those lanes. Still, the regime did not believe. Their scientists examined the few strange readings and scoffed. These are natural phenomena, one said. Static from black holes, another argued. Faulty sensors, others added. They wanted to believe their own words. But deep down, some of them began to feel fear, because the signals kept coming. Some were faint, like the breath of something enormous hiding in the dark. Others came in sharp bursts, as if massive engines had ignited for only a moment before falling silent again. One regime spy ship, sent secretly to investigate, managed to send back only a single image before disappearing. The image showed a shape. It was faint, blurry, almost impossible to see, but it was there. A massive outline, darker than space itself, with lines too sharp, too straight to be natural. It was not a rock. It was not a planet, it was built. When the high speaker of the regime saw the image, he laughed and threw it aside. Tricks, he shouted. The humans cannot build such things. This is the work of rebels trying to frighten us. The council laughed with him, but in private, many of them stared at the image and felt their stomachs twist, because even though it was blurry, even though it was faint, one truth could not be ignored. Something was there. Meanwhile, on small alien worlds, fear spread like wildfire. People began asking questions. Why are ships disappearing? Why do the signals grow stronger? Why do the humans remain silent? For centuries, humans had been known for one thing. They always spoke. Loud, proud, angry. Humans always answered an insult with an insult, always answered a threat with defiance. But now, faced with the regime's mockery, Earth said nothing. That silence was terrifying. A silence like that meant planning. A silence like that meant patience. And patience was something no one thought humans had. The regime sent more fleets to patrol the edges of their empire. They watched the dark regions carefully. At first, they saw nothing, but then a shadow appeared. One patrol ship picked up a massive object drifting in the void. It had no beacon, no signature, no identification. The patrol captain moved closer, curious. He thought it might be an old wreck or a lost colony ship. As his vessel approached, the object seemed to shift, as if the void itself was bending. His sensors screamed warnings, showing impossible readings. Then everything went dark. The patrol ship never returned. When the regime tried to contact it, there was no answer. Only silence. The officers argued again. Some demanded action, insisting a new enemy was rising. Others mocked them, saying fear was clouding their judgment. One commander shouted in anger, "It is the humans." "I am certain of it. Who else would remain so quiet while we insult them? Who else would hide in the shadows like predators waiting to strike?" But the council silenced him. The high speaker glared and said, "Humans have no such power. Their ships are toys. Their fleets are nothing. We are the regime. We do not fear shadows." The council cheered, but the commander did not cheer. He sat in silence, staring at the image of that massive outline in the void. Something about it chilled him to the bone, because deep inside, he knew the truth. The silence of Earth was not weakness. It was warning, and whatever was hiding in the void was not a shadow. It was a warship, and it was waiting. The void was silent. Far from suns, far from planets, there drifted a shadow larger than mountains, For years it had been hidden, cloaked in silence, masked by clever tricks of human design. No one in the galaxy had expected it. No one had even imagined it. Until now. The regime's sensors had finally caught more than whispers. Their patrols had gone missing. Their spy ships had failed to return. The Council was forced to act. They dispatched an entire fleet, 60 warships armed with weapons that had crushed countless rebellions. The galaxy expected this fleet to reveal the truth, that there was nothing in the void but empty fear. But when the fleet reached the coordinates, the void stirred. At first, the regime commanders laughed. Their screens showed only stars scattered like jewels across the dark. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Ghost stories, one captain muttered. The humans could never reach this far. They are too weak, too primitive. Then, without warning, their instruments screamed, energy spikes, gravity distortions, shadows where no planets existed. The void itself bent, and out of that bending came a shape. At first it was only a line, straight, sharp, unnatural. Then another line, then another, until the outline of something impossibly huge filled their screens. Slowly, like a beast waking from its long sleep, the warship revealed itself. The regime fleet fell silent. The vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was blacker than the void itself, its armor layered in angles that swallowed light. It carried no banners, no markings of empire, only a single emblem painted in white across its hull, the emblem of Earth. Impossible, whispered one commander. His voice trembled. Humans cannot build this. They do not have the technology. They do not. The warship's engines ignited. Blue-white fire roared from its thrusters, shaking the void itself. The human vessel turned, slow and deliberate, and faced the regime fleet. Its size was monstrous. Larger than their battleships. Larger than their carriers. It was not a fleet, but it was more than a ship. It was a fortress built to move, a weapon given life. The regime captains panicked. Form lines, one shouted. Target it immediately, another cried. Destroy it before it fires. Their ships spread into attack formations, weapons charging, but the human warship did not move to dodge. It did not retreat, it simply waited. The regime fired first. Dozens of beams lit the void, streaking across space. Explosions shook against the warship's hull, but when the light cleared, the vessel remained untouched. Its black armor shimmered with strange energy, absorbing and deflecting the attack. The regime captains shouted in disbelief. Shields cannot hold against this firepower. How is it still standing? Then the human warship answered. A single blast erupted from its forward cannon. Not a beam, not a missile, something entirely new. The light was white-hot, sharp as a blade, faster than thought, and in one instant 5 regime warships vanished, gone. No wreckage, no drifting remains, only empty space where mighty vessels had stood seconds before. The fleet froze. Silence filled their comms. For the first time in centuries, the regime did not know what to do. One terrified voice finally spoke. This is not possible. But the warship was not done. Its side batteries glowed, unleashing storms of energy that tore through another cluster of ships. Regime captains screamed orders, but panic had already consumed their crews. Their shots went wild. Their formations broke apart. Against one human warship, 60 regime vessels were slaughtered. Some tried to flee, engines burning bright as they turned away. But every time they ran, the warship appeared again, its massive frame cutting off their escape, its weapons firing with ruthless precision. It did not fight like a machine. It fought like a predator, patient, cold, deadly. Within minutes, the great regime fleet was gone. Only wreckage floated in the dark, lit faintly by dying sparks. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the warship vanished. Its engines shut down. Its outline blurred. And once more, the void was empty. The survivors, few, broken, trembling, sent desperate messages back to the regime. They tried to explain what they had seen. A warship of impossible design. A vessel that destroyed fleets with single strikes. A ship marked with the emblem of Earth. But the council refused to believe them. This is madness, the high speaker shouted. A trick. A weapon stolen from another empire. Humans cannot build this. Still, he could not silence the fear in his people's eyes. Because across the galaxy, the whispers grew louder. Fleets destroyed. Shadows in the void. A warship with no equal. And always the same question followed the whispers. If this is only one human ship, how many more wait in the dark? The galaxy trembled. The regime laughed no longer, for the void had awakened. And in it, humanity had returned. The destruction of the patrol fleet could not be hidden. Wreckage floated in the void, scattered like broken bones. A handful of damaged ships crawled back to regime space, their crews pale with terror. Their reports spread quickly, too quickly for the Council to silence. Across the galaxy, news stations played fragments of intercepted transmissions. The voices of regime captains echoed across alien homes. Impossible. Shields failing. It's cutting through us like, retreat, retreat. We cannot. No. It's right on top of, then silence. Every broadcast ended the same way, with static. At first, many did not believe it. Surely it was lies. Surely it was a trick. The regime was too powerful, too strong. How could one ship do this? But then came the proof. One regime broadcast had been hacked. Someone, no one knew who, had released footage directly from the battle. The galaxy saw it with their own eyes. They saw a black shape emerging from the void. They saw weapons firing in every direction, beams of fire strong enough to melt asteroids, and they saw it all strike against a single ship, only for that ship to survive without a scratch. Then came the terrible counterattack. The human warship fired one beam, and a fleet of warships vanished. Aliens watching across the galaxy gasped, some screaming aloud. Others fell into silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. It was not rumor anymore. It was not fear or whisper. It was real, and it was human. In the regime's capital, panic spread through the lower classes. People whispered in the streets, their eyes wide with fear. If humans can build this, what else can they build? Is there only one ship? Or a whole fleet? Why are they attacking the regime? What do they want? The high speaker appeared on broadcasts, his voice cold and commanding. These are lies, he declared. Do not believe the traitors and rebels who spread false images. Humanity is weak. Humanity cannot hurt us. But even as he spoke, fresh reports arrived. Another regime fleet, 100 ships this time, had been sent to trap the human warship. They too had vanished, only one survivor returned. His ship was broken, his crew half dead, his voice trembling as he gave his testimony before the council. It's not a fleet, he whispered. It's a monster. It fights like no ship I've ever seen. It appears from nowhere. It vanishes into the dark. We cannot track it. We cannot fight it. It kills and then it's gone. The chamber fell silent. The high speaker's face twisted with rage. He called the survivor a coward, a liar. But when the recording of the battle was leaked, no one could deny the truth. The galaxy was watching. On neutral worlds, massive crowds gathered around screens. Merchants, workers, and soldiers alike stared in silence as the human warship appeared again, tearing through regime ships as if they were paper. Children clung to their parents. Old veterans shook their heads in disbelief. Entire species who once feared the regime now whispered one word with hope and dread. Humans, and across rebel colonies, across enslaved planets, across every broken world under regime control, the same thought grew stronger and stronger. If the humans can fight them, then maybe the regime can be defeated. But the regime refused to admit weakness. They prepared a broadcast, one meant for the entire galaxy. A display of their power. They would gather a grand fleet, larger than any seen in centuries. They would stream the battle live to all, proving once and for all that the human warship was nothing. The day came quickly. Over 200 warships gathered in formation, their hulls shining like silver blades against the dark. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, all waiting. Their weapons glowed with power. Their commanders stood ready. The broadcast began. Billions tuned in. Across thousands of worlds, screens lit up. The high speaker's voice filled the stars. Today, we end the lie of humanity. Today, the regime shows the galaxy that no insect can stand against us. The fleets advanced, and then the void opened. The human warship appeared once more. Silent, enormous, waiting. For a moment, no one moved. The galaxy held its breath. Then the regime fired. The stars themselves seemed to scream as beams, missiles, and plasma tore across space. Hundreds of ships unleashed their fury, turning the darkness into a storm of light. The human warship disappeared inside the fire. For a moment it was gone, drowned beneath the storm. The galaxy gasped. Maybe this time the regime had won. Maybe this time the humans would fall, but then the fire cleared, and the warship was still there, untouched, alive, waiting. Its forward cannon glowed brighter than suns. The entire galaxy watched as the human warship fired once. The light cut through the regime's grand fleet like a knife through glass. Whole formations vanished instantly, dozens of ships gone, carriers split in half, dreadnoughts torn apart, panic erupted. Ships tried to scatter, but the warship was faster. Side batteries. The galaxy was no longer laughing. The regime's propaganda screens that once mocked humanity now replayed the same terrifying moment. Again and again, the sudden arrival of a human warship from the void. The alien crowds that had once cheered the Council's insults toward Earth now stood in silence. There were no jeers, no laughter, only fear because the warship was still there. It did not move. It did not speak. It only watched. The regime's admirals tried to sound confident. "One ship cannot stand against us," they said, their voices shaking. But their words fooled no one. Even the soldiers in their great fleets whispered in private. They had seen the recordings. They had seen the human warship tear through ships as if they were nothing, and yet Earth had sent no message. No warning, no demand. Why was humanity silent? On the hidden world where the regime's high council gathered, panic was beginning to grow. "They have broken our order," one counselor hissed. A warship appeared without permission. "If they can move unseen through the void, what else can they do?" Another slammed his hand on the table. "We should crush them now. Gather the fleets and burn their system. Do not let their silence trick you. They are weak." But even he did not believe his own words. His eyes kept darting to the holoscreen where the warship still floated in the darkness, its black armor reflecting no light. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. The galaxy had mapped every drive signature, every reactor hum, every kind of weapon known. But this ship, it had none of those. Its systems were invisible, its energy unreadable. It was as if it wasn't even there. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, whispers began to spread among the smaller races. For centuries, the regime had ruled with fear. No one had ever stood against them. No one dared, but now, humanity had appeared from nothing. One warship had cracked the image of regime power. In secret networks among smugglers, traders, and desperate colonies, a single question began to spread. Could humanity be the answer? On Earth, silence remained, no broadcasts, no threats, no promises. The regime's spies searched for signs of activity. They found nothing. Earth seemed quiet, as if it were not preparing for war at all, and that silence was worse than any weapon. Then, without warning, the human warship moved. Not fast, not violent. It simply drifted forward, cutting through the void with impossible grace. The regime fleet scrambled to respond, positioning their ships, raising their weapons. Admirals shouted orders. Thousands of warships turned their cannons on the lone vessel. "Fire on my command," the regime's supreme commander bellowed. The galaxy watched, every screen, every channel, every pair of eyes focused on that one moment. The regime, the eternal power of the galaxy, would finally crush the human intruder. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The human warship did not move faster. It did not charge. 7, 6. Its lights remained dark. 5, 4. Its weapons were still silent. 3, 2. And then, before the order could be given, every regime ship's power flickered. Alarms screamed. Engines died. Cannons went dark. The regime fleet went blind. The human warship kept moving. On the council world, the leaders watched in horror. What did they do?" one whispered. "They shut down our fleet," another answered, voice shaking. But no one could explain how. No known weapon could do this. No known system could reach across such distances. It was impossible. And yet, it was happening. The warship drifted closer, silent and unstoppable. The regime's great fleets, once feared across the stars, now floated helpless in space, powerless, like toys waiting to be broken. In the shadows of the galaxy, those who had suffered under the regime felt something they had not felt in centuries. Hope. Because the silence of humanity was not weakness. It was the silence before the storm, and the storm was coming. The galaxy watched in silence, the regime's greatest fleet. Thousands of warships armed with weapons that had enslaved worlds now floated powerless in the void, and at the center of it all was one ship, one human warship. It drifted forward with no sound, no signal, no demand. Its black hull reflected nothing, as if it were a shadow cut out of the universe itself. The regime's admirals screamed at their crews to restart the engines, to fire, to fight, but the ships remained blind. Systems were dead. Cannons refused to respond. For the first time in history, the regime was not in control. On the Council world, panic was spreading through the highest chambers of power. "This cannot be real," one shouted. "No species has this technology." "Then explain why our fleet is silent," another snapped back. Arguments turned into fear, and fear turned into silence when the warship's image appeared on every holoscreen. The humans had not spoken once, but the galaxy could feel their presence, and then the silence broke. A voice echoed across every regime ship, every council chamber, every broadcast channel in the galaxy. It was human, calm, cold, and terrifying. "You called us weak. You called us dying. You laughed at our history, our wars, our scars. You thought silence meant fear." The voice paused. The entire galaxy leaned closer. "You were wrong." The regime council froze. The galaxy froze. No alien had ever heard humans speak like this. Not with anger, not with begging, not with desperation, but with certainty. "You built your empire on fear. You broke worlds. You erased voices. You silenced hope. Today, silence belongs to you." As the word spread, so did something else. The regime's fleets began to break apart. Not from weapons, not from explosions, but from inside. Systems tore themselves apart, reactors shut down, shields collapsed. One by one, the Empire's warships went dark forever, drifting as cold metal husks. The regime's supreme commander pounded the console, screaming, "Fight back! Fight back!" But there was no fight left. Their mighty armada had been erased without a single shot fired, and the human warship kept moving, unstoppable, quiet, endless across the galaxy on hidden channels. The oppressed and broken species of 1,000 worlds began to speak in whispers. "Humanity is the storm. They came from the void. The regime is finished." Hope spread faster than fear, and the regime knew they could not stop it. On the Council world, the leaders of the Empire made one last attempt. They sent out a broadcast, their voices desperate. We wish to negotiate. Humanity, name your terms. We can..." The human voice cut them off. "There are no terms." The galaxy held its breath. There is only justice. And in that moment, the void itself seemed to move. Behind the lone warship, shadows began to appear, more ships, dozens, hundreds, thousands. They had been waiting, unseen, hidden in the darkness where no empire could reach. The lone warship had not come alone. It was the signal. The vanguard. The first spark. Humanity had returned. The regime council collapsed into chaos. Some screamed for escape. Others begged for mercy, but it was too late. The sky above their world filled with black hulls, endless fleets of human design, each carrying silence like a weapon and history like a blade. No one laughed now. No one mocked Earth. No one dared to speak. The galaxy had witnessed something impossible. A species once called weak. A planet once ignored. A people once mocked as dying. They had walked out of the void with power beyond imagination. And they had shattered an empire without firing a single cannon. The human voice spoke one final time. "Remember this day. Remember what silence brings. For when humanity comes, it is not to beg. It is not to kneel. It is to end." The council chamber fell into despair. The regime's legacy, built over centuries of domination, was gone in one night. The galaxy would remember it forever. Not as the day the regime triumphed, but as the day the void spoke with a human voice, and from that day onward, every species whispered the same truth. Fear the silence. Fear the void. Fear humanity, because the storm had only begun.